Hello, everyone. Great to see you joining. Hello. Nice.
Hi.
Hello. Great. Yeah, while we're still gathering a few people, almost 70 after this set, we'll see how many are joining us today. We want to open a survey. We would like to get to know our audience today. And we would like to ask you to answer 3 questions. One is about your career level. Another one is on the sector you're involved in, and also we're asking about your relationship to the Arctic. And thank you very much for your input. We're still letting people in here. So it would be great if you answer the survey once it started. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We are very happy to have you on board. For your information, this online seminar is being recorded and will be made available on the Arctic Passion and Apex websites. And you would be very happy if you turn on your camera. You might also see in the recording then, but of course you're of course free to keep it off. And yeah, well, you know the game. Please mute your microphone unless you're speaking. You can raise your hand when you're joining the discussion. We really would like to have an interactive conversation today. You can also, of course, use the chat for your questions and comments. We very much appreciate that. Today we are going to speak about and discuss especially a very wonderful event which we had last fall. We're going to talk about the learnings from the Arctic Passion Sharing Circle, an event which was held for early career professionals in the Arctic youth, which took place last October in the homelands of the Sami in northern Finland. And this event was organized by APEX, the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists, and in the frame of the EU project Arctic Passion. Therefore, we would like to start off with a few words about APEX and Arctic Passion before we will ask our 4 wonderful panelists today to introduce themselves and start the panel discussion. So my name is Josephine Lenz. Together with Lisa Großfeld, we are your hosts for our today's online seminar, and we are both part of APEX. So what is APEX? APEX is the Association of Polar Early Career Scientists. This is a network from early career scientists for early career scientists from all disciplines and cultural and national backgrounds. And there's basically a platform for exchange on various topics, maybe science communication, alternative career paths, or just to celebrate the polar and alpine areas in the research. So education and training is another very integral part, and as much as APEX, APEX was involved in various EU projects, of which Arctic Passion is the most recent one.
Yeah, and APEX is responsible for the education and training part of the project Arctic Passion. And the Sharing Circle was one of the main education event we organized for young professionals and Arctic youth. In the project in general, we aim to create a coherent, integrated Arctic observing system, so to summarize or to collect Arctic observing systems as one network. And the approach is really based on co-creation and working together with service end users and Arctic communities. And I don't want to say too much about the Sharing Circle at this point because we have a wonderful video that we'd like to show you to get some more insights into the event, how it was, and what it was about. So I'll just stop sharing the presentation and switch to the video.
I walk along the river, watch the water wave and right place in the world.
In the Skolt Sami tradition, important meetings take place in a circle. Coming together in this way means that each person comes to the table as an equal. In autumn 2023, a group of Arctic youth and early career professionals came together from across the globe to participate in a sharing circle in the village of Chevetjaur, also known as Sevettijärvi, in Sapmi, Sami land in northern Finland. We came from different backgrounds, different professions, and different cultures. But we all came to the circle to listen, learn, and discuss how Arctic researchers can better support the communities they work in. We heard from invited speakers and other participants about important projects from across the circumpolar north. Projects addressing the reclamation of indigenous Arctic land, rights, cultures, and languages, as well as collaboration and co-creation between Arctic communities and scientific researchers. We also saw the work of the Snow Change Cooperative, a network of local and indigenous communities working together on climate change and environmental challenges and advancing their cultures. We saw the rewilding work accomplished by Snow Change, visiting nearby restored rivers and forests. We spoke with local community members, learned about Sami culture, and were honored to be invited to take part in several Sami traditions. But perhaps most importantly, we were able to speak to each other.
I have a deep-seated history with red salmon because I'm from the red salmon region of Alaska and Bristol Bay, and I'm a sixth-generation woman commercial fisher. I was really excited to meet with international colleagues and have a chance to share the work that I do in Alaska, and also just have a relaxing environment where I feel like there's space to be vulnerable, because I feel at conferences and in my professional life it's a lot of performance, and so coming to an Arctic research group that you can be authentically yourself, I think is a nice breath of fresh air. The first day I was super jet lagged, but going to the reindeer corral, I could really feel the history of this place and start to understand more of the culture of Sami here. And I've never had that hands-on experience with other people's indigenous land and way of life.
This is where the reindeer hooves are clicking in thousands when the reindeer roundup happens.
I was really impressed with how uninhibited everyone was with their emotions. I think a lot of people brought up about how in academia, sometimes there's this push to be professional at all times, but I really think the most authentically professional that you can be is when you're sincere and when you're very passionate about what you do. And so there were tears, and there were lots of hugs, and there were swear words, and just very uncomfortable but heartfelt stories. And I think it was just a testament to how much we really care about being better.
The sharing circle brought together people with vastly different experiences, but a like-minded resolve to use science as a force for good in the Arctic. Discussions required a willingness to be wrong and an acceptance that you would need to listen and learn in order to understand the nuances of such difficult topics. In a dramatically changing Arctic landscape, trust and respect between communities and researchers is vital. The sharing circle provided a space for necessary open dialogue, facilitating the development of new, promising relationships.
It's the opportunity to feel that I'm not alone, and to share the highs and lows of this field with other people going through the same things. To just have community and support is always appreciated.
I think it was very enlightening to hear everyone talk about their own struggles with trying to either connect to a greater degree or to reconnect with their heritage. And I think it was just a beautiful example of how, like, regardless of where we come from or what we look like or who we want to be, we're all human and we have a lot of the same similarities.
The Arctic is a wonderful and unique place. Sadly, it is also vulnerable. We will need connections like the ones we made during the sharing circle, if we hope to keep the Arctic resilient in the face of change.
Open arms and open hearts. Wash my eyes, I see clearly, I am free. Open arms and open hearts. I stand so tall, all my sisters guiding me.
Yeah, I think sometimes visuals just say more than words. And thanks at this point really much for those who co-produced this video, which were 4 participants of the Sharing Circle, Emma, Elise, Ninetta, and Jessica. And they were producing the video together with the multimedia expert from Grit Arendal, Olivia Rempel. I'm just going back to the presentation. And yeah, just want to shortly summarize. So the Sharing Circle really was an event for young professionals and Arctic youth to connect. And we wanted to offer them the opportunity to exchange among each other, but also with the Arctic community, with the Skolt Sami. So learning from each other, listening, and really sharing experiences and knowledge. And throughout the whole week, so yeah, from Sunday to Saturday, really to have the chance to connect with each other and learn about Arctic life and different knowledge systems, and about the concept of co-creation, and seeing some examples of that in practical. And in the best case, these connections that were made during this week might last also for longer. And yeah, now we have the honor to have some participants who agreed to share some experiences about the event with us today. So thank you very much for joining. And I'd like to pass the word around to 4 of the participants, which would be Jessica Hall. And do you want to start, Jessica, and then we'll pass the word to the others?
Absolutely. Thank you firstly for the opportunity to talk about the Sharing Circle. It's something I've talked about a lot since it happened, so it's really fun to have a place where I'm actually supposed to be doing this. So my name's Jessica, I come from England and I've lived in Norway for 3 years now. I have a history in literature and primarily in poetry, where I look at Indigenous eco-poetry, so in the Marshallese Islands and in Alaska, and looking at how environmental poetry can be used as a form of protesting colonial legacies. I loved what I was doing, but I realised that my interest kind of went beyond the poetry, and so I'm currently doing my second master's, which is with the University of Tromsø in Norway and the University of Saskatchewan in Canada, where I look mostly at policy and how mining and extractive industries impact Indigenous communities. I've also got a real interest in Indigenous-led ecological restoration, which is why when I first met Lisa about a year ago at the Arctic Frontiers Conference as Emerging Leaders. You mentioned this for the first time, and I was immediately determined to attend if I was allowed. And I think what really drew me to the Sharing Circle was the focus on a positive co-management system, which is really unique to have the opportunity to be around, the focus on Indigenous-led ecological restoration. But for me, it was the structure that really appealed. I think there are so many very traditional conferences where you talk a lot and you don't get to see or do anything really sometimes. So it was really fun to be a part of, well, hopefully be a part of something where you could see it happening in real life.
We ask you, all participants or those of you who agreed to share your experience today, to send us a picture that describes your personal experience about the Sharing Circle best. Can you say some words about your chosen picture, which is this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it made me smile, firstly. We were just doing exactly the same thing. But this was a really positive example for me of, we were learning about the river flow, and it was a very interesting conversation, but then we were able to actually go and see the river that we were talking about. And I think to be able to contextualize our learning and our conversations was just really positive. And I mean, any chance to do a lecture or a seminar outside, I think most of us were very happy to do that. And yeah, I just remember this was a really fun afternoon, and we had a lot of hot dogs and some of the fish after. It was a fun one.
With a barbecue outside. Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you so much, Jessica. I'd like to pass the word for the second candidate who agreed to join this webinar, Elise Brown-Dussault. Can you introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Elise, and I'm the one in pink in this picture. I was looking for some pictures of myself that we needed to have in this presentation, and this is one that Olivia took at the Sharing Circle of myself and my friend Caitlin, and she's helping me reach some lichens in the trees. I feel that's very representative of our friendship, and I was just a moment where I was feeling very happy, so that's the one I wanted to put in. And I am Canadian. I live in the Yukon, and I am a sister, daughter, friend, Northerner who dabbles in graduate studies from time to time. And I'm currently doing my master's at Wilfrid Laurier in Canada. And my focus is on restoring caribou lichen stands after wildfires have come through. This subject is pretty important to me because we're learning quite quickly in the boreal forest to try to coexist with how climate change is affecting our landscapes and what we can do to sort of mitigate that change. So I take that project pretty seriously. And for me, I wanted to join the Sharing Circle because when I read the description, as Jess said, there was a big focus on Indigenous-led protected areas and restored areas. And I was really interested in learning about the methods and the processes people were using elsewhere. And I just wanted to be there and learn. So that was initially what drew me in. And if I knew what it had been about, I would have been even more excited to apply. So, and I was really interested in the sort of the setup.
Yeah, very nice to hear. And you also brought us a picture which describes your Sharing Circle experience best, which is this one. Can you say some words about it?
Yeah, so this is again a picture by Olivia. She's a great photographer, much better than me. And I like in this picture, this is one of the restored river areas that's been restored by Paulina's group and Snow Change together. And it was the first field trip that we took as a group. And it was just very overwhelmingly special place to be. You show up and you just feel like how loved a place is. And then the more that they were talking about what they did to this river and how they restored the boulders one by one to where they used to be so that this river could exist in the way that it should. it was just very touching, and it was really lovely to be all there together, experiencing that together. So that's why I chose that one.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, and thanks for having you here today. Pavel, you have also been part of the sharing circle. Would you like to introduce yourself and say why you joined?
So, hi, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this hour, for which for longer, unfortunately, I will not be able to join, but my name is Pavel. I'm a researcher at the Arctic Center, University of Lapland, but actually I'm from Belarus, so far away from the Arctic. And but my path to the Arctic started in 2019 when I started my master's in Akureyri, Iceland at the Polar Law program. So I graduated from there, and now already for almost 4 years I'm in the Arctic Center, University of Lapland, and living in Rovaniemi, Finland, and actually actively involved in Arctic Passion project, but in other working package, in working package 7. And I had two big reasons to join the sharing circle. The first one is, as mentioned in the slide, is interest in learning different formats of engagement in research and study, in youth engagement in research and study environments, because except for Arctic Center, I am also involved in work of Arctic Youth Network and its youth organization aimed at also engaging youth, involving youth in different research and development and study activities. And it's interesting for me to know what are the formats of engagement exist and how they can outcome. And the second reason was the interest in work of snow change and interest in work of indigenous communities on preservation of their nature, especially given the fact that in communication with policymakers that we are doing an Arctic Passion project, we heard a lot about secondary status of indigenous knowledge, of indigenous approaches taken by municipal policymakers, by regional policymakers, and I wanted to see by myself that it's not true, and you should not underestimate indigenous approaches into preservation of nature, into preservation of terrestrial and water environments, and especially the area where Sharing Circle took place was close to Tana municipality in Norway, where actually it's a big dispute between indigenous community and scientific community on water management of Tana River. And for me, it was kind of interesting to know that indigenous approaches are also worth of taking attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for joining. And you also brought up a picture who describes the Sharing Circle experience for you personally, which is
so. And by that picture, I would like to say that my goals to learn were not fully completed, because it was a lot of really interesting people with whom it was more interesting to talk than to study sometimes, and it was very good result to see that such events are getting together some interesting people, and it's really great outcome for me to see that such events can compete against online meetings and interest of young people on Netflix and YouTube.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pavel, and thanks for being here. The fourth candidate who was on the panel today is Harmony Weiner. I saw her dropping off. Yeah, perfect. Nice. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi everyone. I'm Harmony Jade Weiner. My Yupik name is Sigak. And I'm an Indigenous liaison at the International Arctic Research Center at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, but I'm here on Denina Land in Anchorage, and it's snowing quite heavily outside, so my internet was going out. So I'm on my hotspot now, so I hope that it's going fine, but just chat me if I freeze or something like that. The hassles of living in the mountains and in the Arctic. But yeah, my background's in fisheries. And it came from, I grew up in fishing towns, some of the biggest fishing landing areas in the US, which is the port of Bristol Bay and Dutch Harbor. And I'm a tribal member of Naknek Native Village, and I grew up commercial fishing there with my family. So I always had an interest in fisheries governance in the Arctic. And I was interested in joining the circle, and I was invited to speak because I work on a sister project of Arctic Passion, which is the research networking and activities for sustained Arctic observing. And I put a link in there, so hopefully I can put the link in the chat to our project here on the North American side. But it was really great to be able to yeah, like I said in the video, I guess I hadn't watched that before, so it was quite interesting to hear what I had said back then. But it was my first experience in Sápmi that was not just tourism, because I used to live in Finland for some studies, and I thought being able to hear directly from the people and being guests in their lands and seeing the connection was really something that you just you can't repeat with the online forum or any other type of conference. And it kind of ties into my picture that, which is that I think the biggest takeaway was how a meeting space can change the feel of a gathering. And so I put this, there was also one with a lot of people in it and my cup of tea that I wanted to put side by side. This was like me prepping for my presentation before everyone got there. But just that we could all be in a circle. It was a cozy environment. Maybe we're under blankets, eating chocolate, having tea, and then our PowerPoint there. I thought it was quite engaging with the speakers because of the environment, and that we were all on equal footing in that circle format. Unlike any other meeting I had ever been to, and I hope for more, and I will advocate for more of these types of gatherings on my side as well.
Yeah, very nice to hear. Thank you so much, Harmony, and thanks for joining the webinar. I also agree, it was really much about the atmosphere in the room, but also among the group that really made up a big portion of how the event went. Okay, so you reported already about some of your experiences and what felt really special to you. What would you say in general, asking you for right now, what's the main difference, or what was the main difference between the Sharing Circle and other educational formats you have attended so far?
I think for me, it was the focus on who you are as a person and not who you are as an academic or a researcher or a professional. And there were definitely times to talk about that. And there was a place where that was the right thing to talk about and to present yourself as. But I remember the first day, the Monday morning, the first time we were in the beautiful room Harmony just showed us. And I can't remember exactly what you and Nadine had put up on there, but I remember you saying that don't tell us about your kind of academic achievements or what you've done professionally. I don't know if it was what's your favorite thing to do or what's fun to you. And I just thought it was such a unique take on introducing yourself in one of these kind of in these environments. You know, I've before at conferences, I'm quite often the youngest in a room, and you know, you hear people listing off their achievements and all of these things you haven't had the time to do yet. Whereas this time round, it was okay to just be who you are, and I thought that was so refreshing. And as Peyton said in the video, that made it such a safe place. You could be vulnerable and just be yourself, and I don't think that happens a lot at conferences at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, kind of seconding that, and all of the other times too, like the dinners and just getting to know one another, and the lovely breakfasts with large vats of salmon berries. But I think that's all important because often at conferences, it's like you stay in the hotel and then you go to the event, you put on the suit and kind of like an armor of this is who I am as a professional, and then maybe try to get some food with like 1 or 2 colleagues after, and then prep the next PowerPoint presentation. But this was like we were just immersed in just being there, saunaing and just hanging out together after hours, and I think that was some of my favorite times as well.
Yeah, I think there was a regular conferences. I guess the goal of a traditional academic conference is like to put out as much information as possible, just like info dump results onto everybody. And to sort of show the next generation of scientists what they're supposed to be like, you know, when they grow up, which sometimes, anyway, it's interesting. But I feel like the intent of the sharing circle was quite different, because the goal was to get in there and know each other and understand each other, and to think more about the process and our way of doing things and how we can be better, rather than our statistical results or whatever. You know, that actually wasn't important at all, which and it wasn't at all the goal of the sharing circle. The location, how special the location was, and how chose the people that came and the location, just made it really special and very intimate experience at a conference.
And I just would like to add that it was really good event because and this format was really interesting because you are coming to such events without strictly set of tasks like you have when you are coming to academic conferences or big Arctic forums or something like that. So I came to Sharing Circle with the thought that I will have rest there and I will not fulfill a lot of tasks, a lot of obligations, gain 100 connections, plan 100 projects, and that kind of stuff that, for example, I have during large academic or different Arctic forums, especially, for example, Arctic Circle Assembly. It's not about academic performances, it's about networking and gaining connections and planning projects together. And in Sharing Circle, it was kind of you're coming, you're breathing, you breathe fresh air, talking with your peers, and just having fun. And at the same time, you're getting a lot of useful information, but this information is not something that you obliged to deliver back to your employer, for example.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. And as I saw in the room, there are much more participants of the Sharing Circle, which is really nice to see you. So feel free to jump in, giving feedback, like sharing your experiences, or also the audience that has not attended to the Sharing Circle to just ask questions or your thoughts about similar events or experiences. So this is really meant to be an open dialogue. And you can just raise your hand or write in the chat.
Yeah, it's always difficult to have online formats as interactive as you want it to be, but it would be great if you feel invited here. I was wondering, I mean, I think you described it well, that often we have an event where we expect some output, and still it seems like there was a lot of things going on, and I'm wondering, 5 months after, can you describe something which you took away, which is still like influencing your professional life right now, or is like something which came out of the sharing circle and is still having a big influence on you? Or is it a moment you still have in your mind right now that you would like to share? Yes,
Hi
Melissa.
everyone. Nice to see you all again. Yeah, I would like to say something because for me it was all about the emotion, and actually this changed a bit my vision. So I'm a scientist, and as a scientist you are always told like, yeah, you need to only trust data and you need to really be neutral, not give your opinion, but just more like talk about what the data gives you and so on. And actually, when it comes to the Arctic, and I have the feeling after the sharing circle that you cannot detach yourself from emotion, and that it's even worse because this would harm like the research we are doing there. So for me, it was like really this emotional load, like to take into account all the experiences of the people and like how emotionally connected they are to the land and so on. And so this changed a bit my vision of being the neutral scientist that I've been told to be before.
Great, yeah.
I would
Jessica.
say,
Oh.
I would say that for me it was kind of useful because I understood that when you are dealing with young people and you want to organize events for young people and have it fruitful and fun, you should be less serious. You should avoid academic language. You should avoid serious talkings. You should avoid digits. You can be just a little bit silly. You can be a little bit simple, but that is the way how to be more effective in communication with young people. So be simple, and they will be simple with you, and you will always have time to be serious academic, and you will always have time to be a strict adult talking with a lot of digits and formulas on the wall. But to be simple, it's a great achievement, and because when you are simple, you're showing your emotions, and that is very important, and it was already mentioned, and I fully support that.
To build on what Pavel says, I think one of my biggest takeaways is that it's okay to not know the answer to every question. And asking a question isn't reflective on what you don't know, it's reflective on what you'd like to learn. Like I remember one of my highlights was we were at a permafrost site of Snow Change, and the previous couple of days I'd been really hesitant to ask somebody what permafrost is, because I've come from a poetry background and now I'm in public policy. I've never really come across permafrost. But I didn't want to ask anyone, and then I kind of was brave enough to do so. And Fabian, who I don't think is on the call today, he's a permafrost researcher, gave an impromptu speech and seminar and taught us all, which I'm sure a lot of people already knew, what permafrost is. And for me, that's just such a strong memory from the sharing circle, because I'd been, really nervous about asking this question and wasn't sure how to say it and when was the right time. And any moment throughout the week would have been the right time. It just happened to be perfectly timed with whilst we were at a permafrost site. So I think I just really take away, like, you're only going to gain if you ask questions, and there's nothing to gain from pretending you know all the answers at all.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the aspect of having, sorry, Zoom keeps telling me my connection is unstable, so sorry if I keep cutting out. That's Northern life, I guess. I really benefited from having people from a bunch of different disciplines together. Being in the natural science field, it's really uncommon that I'm in a group of people that are all like, that we're all close and we can all talk, that are from social sciences, sort of international policy, natural sciences, of course. And one of the things that stayed with me was that there was a linguist with us, Karina, who I think is not here either. But as a natural scientist, it's really not often that I am in a room with a linguist. It's just not, it's two fields that we assume do not intersect. And she said something during one of the talks that really stayed with me, that was like, if you're a natural scientist who's invested in doing knowledge co-creation and you're not supporting language revitalization, then you really don't, you need to reconsider what you think knowledge means and what you think knowledge co-creation actually is, which was something, you kind of hear it floating around here and there, but it's not, I'd never been told in such a direct way before. And so I've spent the last like 4 months digesting that slowly and hoping to integrate that into my work. But then as well, when I was thinking about that and looking at the collaboration between Paulina's group and Snow Change, and seeing how collaboration is actually very slow, and it's not just doing a science project together, it's also standing up for those people when it comes to land rights stuff, when it comes to language revitalization, when it comes to anything that you can do that your community needs from you, that you can provide, is really, that's what creates a strong partnership. And so it was really nice to see that modeled by them. So yeah, since then I think it has affected the work that I do. One of the things that I think is an outcome of Snow Change is that I used a research grant, supposed to be for science, to hire an artist out of my community to do art for me, to help with my project. And at first I thought it was going to be just like, well, you know, I'll put some money back in the community and I'll get a cool thing to share with the PowerPoints. But then what she did actually really blew me away. And now I like just really want to make that part of my process. This is what she made. And yeah, so it was really amazing. And I think like just broadening my mind, things like this through the sharing circle has been really helpful for me in terms of developing my process. So yeah, I'll put the link of this artist in the chat too, if anyone wants to check her out.
Wow, that's so cool. Thanks for sharing. It's very concrete also in terms of development, and yeah, it's great. I would like to ask Pavel to say a few words about developments and the community since then, and ask you to talk about the Arctic Youth Network. Would you?
Oh, okay, I will introduce briefly the organization where I am now. So Arctic Youth Network basically is a youth organization, international youth organization, unified by people who interested in the Arctic or living in the Arctic. So we are not bound by professional status or professional connections like Apex, for example. We are more organization of just people, young people from the Arctic, and legally based in Canada, and were created in 2019 after 2018's Arctic Youth Summit in Rovaniemi, where Conservation of Arctic Flora and Fauna Working Group of Arctic Council, together with WWF, expressed the need and desire in having kind of youth organization just for young people in the Arctic that are involved or engaged in research, development, study activities that they can't, for example, do because they are not like researchers or scientists or academics, but they want to be involved in there. And right now, the Arctic Youth Network is pretty big player, becoming a pretty big player in the Arctic Youth, because right now we are realizing 2 series of publications as Cities of the Arctic Youth, where our members having interviews with mayors of Arctic cities and talking about why cities in the north are suitable for living and open for living for young people, and why you should consider cities in the far north as places for live. And the second publication series is People of the North, People of the Arctic, Communities of the Arctic, where we are talking with representatives, young representatives living in different interesting communities across the Arctic, mainly indigenous communities or remote communities in the Arctic, and asking them to explain why even in small remote communities you can have fun of living, and why again the Arctic is a place where you can live. And except for series of publications that we are doing, we are also involved in Use Together for Arctic Futures project, where a lot of people here in the meeting are also involved, and you will probably hear a lot about this project in following years, so stay tuned to social media. And basically, the main message of the Arctic Youth Network is to provide a platform for just young people from the Arctic to be involved in the Arctic, in the international Arctic, regardless of their research background, of their academic background. The only thing that we are looking for is the age, just because we would like to conform with the international definition of the youth, and that's all. But in general, we don't have any criteria, and we are involving our young people as much as we can, especially now. So I was short, and thank you for giving word to me about that.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you also, Harmony, for sharing the link. It's so great to see this development. Yeah, I think it's really good to keep the discussion going, and we would like to open the stage, or the room, I should say, to all of you, to raise your questions or your comments, to your thoughts. And yeah, please bring them up by either raising your hand or writing them in the chat. And while doing so, I will ask Lisa a question. Because, you know, when writing the proposal for Arctic Passion, and Apex was asked to be part of it. Of course, that we jumped on the opportunity and also wanted to bring in opportunities for our early career scientists, but also beyond the science sector. This was clear to us, but also we just envisioned a summer school. So we kind of had the format in mind of a summer school, like we had recently for Mosaic or something. And then it was very clear that this project is different. And when Lisa came on board, the ideas were developed much further, and it became much more of a collaborative approach. And it's so great to see this result. But I also I think it includes quite some different thinking and also capacity. So what do you think as an organizer for the sharing circle made a difference, both on the organizational side, but also as being part of the sharing circle and in the organizing role?
For me, of course, the event was also a really special event. I think it was really much about hearing the needs of young professionals, and to really meet them and to construct the event around these needs so they really get something out of it. And I agree, the Arctic Passion Project, I really had another approach, which I felt we could adapt this approach to this event. And I have to, I also want to mention the Arctic Observing Summit, which also had a huge impact on how the concept evolved. Because we had some really valuable discussions about capacity sharing. There was also a working group about it. And I learned from many professionals and an Inuit organization, like how how there's the need, or what there's a need to connect between the science community and Arctic communities, but really on a personal level. And there was also mentioned like that young professionals and Arctic youth could be a good bridge to combine these two communities. And I saw that the sharing circle was kind of a good opportunity to address these needs, and then like always incorporating input from interested youth, and then also the sharing circle participants, like what do they expect, what do they want to have, and then really incorporate that in the program. Yeah, it always meant to be really open in the organizing process, and also to be flexible even during the event. Because sometimes discussions during the sharing circle just happened, and they felt so needed. And then from us organizers, so it was not myself, it was also Nadine Hillenbrand who helped me a lot. So we are the organizing team, and then to give space to those group discussions, and to, because this I feel is often not the space for at conferences. It is always cut off at some point where the real valuable discussions begin, and we wanted to give them floor. And yeah, it was in many aspects, it was a really impressive and inspiring event. And we as organizers also were really happy about the group, like, because it was so easy and they were getting along so well with each other, which made it for us also quite easy, and it was, yeah, really special. I see.
There's also a question kind of related to that, which I would like to raise from the chat, and then we ask Sandy afterwards to pose a question. Ronja was asking, what surprised you most as the one in the room who was organizing the event? Lisa, what was the biggest surprise? I think you hinted on some, but
the biggest surprise during the organization, maybe not a surprise, but something that, like, things just happen that you cannot foresee. So yeah, I think like being flexible and reacting on different things was important in our process. I have to think about it a little more. Maybe I'm coming up with another point, but I'd like to hand over to Sandy.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for all of this great sharing and exchange of information. I learned a ton today. I introduced myself in the chat earlier, and it might occur to some of you that I'm not an early career researcher. I actually run a lot of meetings and organize a lot of meetings. And what I was really happy to hear so much about was ideas for making meetings less stressful, and for people to feel less alienated at meetings. And I can share that even as a senior person, I can still experience a lot of anxiety and alienation at meetings because of how they're structured. Simply, I think it's a really human thing. But I would love to hear, I mean, there was already a lot shared today, but I would love to hear some thoughts on, you know, even as we're all about to go, or many of us are about to go to ASSW or ALOS, what are some simple things we can do as organizers and session leaders to make meetings less stressful and more inclusive?
I was going to jump in to say a quick response. That I think it's really powerful when we can form the room in a circle, even if we have to rearrange things to make that happen, and then having space for everyone to introduce themselves personally and professionally. I And yeah, at ASSW, I'm helping with the ICARP research partner team 5, which is Indigenous-led methodologies. And so we're trying to implement some of that in our open session as well. And not having a super strict timeline agenda. I think that also creates anxiety when I have like my conference app. I'm like, I have to be here and here and here and here. It's nice to have a half a day chunk of like, I'm just in this room and just being with these people and not running to this meeting and that meeting. So I appreciate that it already feels like we can implement these coming up soon.
I think for me, what made the sharing circle so inclusive was the focus was on you and not your achievements or your professional development or your academic interest. Those came up naturally, but the first introduction was really centered on who you are as a person. And I think that removed a lot of the stress. Something I also have felt, not at the sharing circle, but at previous conferences, is when it's about the youth or when it's younger people talking or in a group, I feel like the language of being young and still developing, it can be overused slightly. So I think that's something for me. It was really nice. Age wasn't a factor in the sharing circle. It didn't matter if you were 21 or 30. I don't know what the age was. At 30 was the maximum. But I think not focusing on that unless it's necessary in that specific context is quite freeing for me, at least.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I have had some conversations with people around here in similar ways, but as soon as you have introductions that focus on the letters that come after the name, there's a hierarchy built in, right? Like there's like a sort of a dominance level, right? Because that's what it represents when you say your letters. It means I am this important in this field. This is how much I know. And so I think if you're starting out, those people that have like a PhD and a postdoc and have been a tenured professor at such and such for however long, like actually it might be too intimidating to go talk to them because you just assume they think you're not important. Versus if everyone's just talking about the things that matter to them and the things that the hopes and goals that they have for the subject that you're talking about, then everybody can be in the same pool. It's not relevant that way. And I think at the sharing circle, it was really nice too, that is not at most conferences, is that there's also a hierarchy built into the kinds of presentations you're allowed to do, depending on where you are in your career. So like, if you're making a poster presentation, that means you're like a baby academic. And like most of the older researchers aren't going to come because they don't think it's important. Versus the sharing circle, like everybody got to talk if they wanted to. Everybody got to talk about what they were working on, and everybody thought it was important. So I think having that like more open platform for people to share their voices and their ideas, rather than only giving the platform to people who are important, would make it a lot more open.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to have one more comment too, that I think at a lot of other conferences, there's an alienation because a lot of people know each other already, or like there's like at a networking reception, people that work together will like gravitate towards each other or like have been working together for decades. And then as an early career professional, like trying to like just get into those circles and have the conversation that you want to have is extremely intimidating, and it's quite like businessy style. But us all being out of our comfort zone and from being all over the world and not really knowing each other before, I think it leveled the playing field on that as well, that we're all starting from the same place of getting to know one another. And yeah, there's not this like clique of professional networks already.
I agree to all what you've just said, and I think also in the reporting of the sharing circle, like the technical part after an event, reading all the evaluations of the participants, and I think like the main message was that I was also learning. I think just humanizing or personalizing the whole conference or session is the main thing. And when we were doing the introductions in the very first session, we just to spark ideas how to more personalize introduce yourself to the group, we gave some example questions that you could answer. Something like, what are your hobbies, or what is home to you, or what do you like to do? Just to get some examples, because I think we are so used to saying what we achieved and what we studied in such conferences, for example, but not like who we are. And I think also we would meet each other on a different level if we more personalize, introduce ourselves. But just somehow echoing what you've just said.
This was really great input, really good to hear. I see that a few people already had left. I think it's late on some parts, but we would like to keep a little bit going. And I would like to ask the ones who are still in the room, could you raise your hand if you kind of involved in organizing educational formats yourself? So we can test the raise your hand button. But it would be nice to hear, like in general, the interest of the audience. Maybe it's also something which may come up at some point, and then you have had a good impression on a hopefully good example. Okay, so that's rather new to our audience. I mean, in the sense of, training and early career support. Well, are there any questions in the room also among the panelists?
Is there going to be a second sharing circle?
Oh, we would hope for one. Not planned in the Arctic Passion project itself, but we hope to steer the discussion in the direction that it can be taken up by projects, by people, by institutions. That would be great.
The project that Pavel just mentioned, Youth Together for Arctic Futures, which is led by the WWF Sweden, and in the consortium there are many youth organizations and networks. There we, as Apex is also involved in there, and there we try to integrate the sharing circle concept to different formats, but also have at least some sessions where we really focus on sharing knowledge and experiences among each other, and not only have this capacity building and learning and more this one-way communication, but really to also open the space for sharing more in planned workshops. So it will be mini sharing circles there, I guess. But yeah, let's hope for another full sharing circle at some point.
Maybe a question to the panelists also. If you would organize such an event yourself, what would you adapt and what would you do differently for the next sharing circle?
I don't know if I would change anything about the experience, but I would just love to have a North American version. So I'll bring you to Fish Camp over here in Alaska, and yeah, we can have similar discussions. I wish the distances were less vast over here though, and with more infrastructure, but yeah, I would be keen to host one on this side of the world.
I think it is one thing I would have done or would have done differently if I had known in advance. I feel like the participants, we didn't really give a lot to the kids when we went to the Skotsani school. And I wish we'd had I don't know, more foresight ahead of time to be like, bring something instead of just like a PowerPoint slide in English being like, this is me, you know, I don't know. I felt like I wasn't contributing enough. I should have brought little gifts. And I know Emma thought about it. Maybe a couple people brought stuff, but I feel like that should have been I would have done that differently if I had to do it again.
And maybe graciously losing the football match might have been a good addition. But yeah, I'm trying to think of what I would do differently. And I really can't think of much. It was the most comfortable environment to be in, to talk and have fun, and it managed to do everything. You had really necessary and emotive conversations. You had a lot of fun. You just got to do a bit of everything. So I think I'm going to second Harmony. The only thing you could do better is do another one.
It's almost the perfect closing words. We wanted to ask you for a last round of thoughts you would like to share before closing. So is there something you would like to share with us? Please feel invited. Otherwise, we take this the idea of having another one, maybe in a different region, with us, and hope to make it happen. Lisa, I'll let you close.
Yeah, thank you all so much for sharing again and being so open about your experiences and to listen and learn from the others. It was really nice to see you, and I hope that some aspects of the sharing circle will be recycled in other formats and maybe, yeah, to inspire conference formats to a more personal environment and to rethink. I think that's also yeah, a good idea to just reflect and rethink your format and really that it needs that it suits the needs of your target audience. Yeah, so it was really a pleasure for having you all here. Thanks for listening, thanks for contributing, and thanks for sharing. The recording will be available on the Arctic Passion and Apex website, and yeah, feel free to watch in again, and maybe for those of you who are attending the Arctic Science Summit Week or Arctic Observing Summit, see you there. And yeah, happy to keep in touch. And yeah, thanks for joining. Thanks for this hour or more than that, a little bit. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you on point very soon again.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.